Welcome to Lunch with the Lord. I'm Pastor Mark, and we are in 1 Peter chapter 2. We are in verse 12 this lesson. But before we begin, our theme verse for Lunch with the Lord, Jeremiah 15:16. Thy words were found, and I did eat them. And thy word was unto me the joy and the rejoicing of my heart. Now, as we saw last lesson, verses 11 and 12 of 1 Peter chapter 2 deal with abstaining from fleshly lusts. All right? And we saw last lesson in verse 11, he says, Dearly beloved, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts which war against the soul. And then he says here in verse 12, having your conversation honest among the Gentiles, that whereas they speak against you as evildoers, they may, by your good works, which they shall behold, glorify God in the day of visitation. And he says here in verse 12, having your conversation honest among the Gentiles. So he says in verse 11, dearly beloved, or those who are dearly beloved by God, I beseech you as strangers and pilgrims, as people who are on this earth, but you're only traveling through, and you're not supposed to have your life and your heart attached to the things of this world. He says, abstain, keep from, resist fleshly lusts which war against the soul. And as we said, warring against the soul isn't just for Christians, it's for non-believers also. Fleshly lusts, the purpose of fleshly lusts is that they want to destroy your soul and to bring you down and to destroy your life here on earth. And it doesn't matter. There's no respecter of persons with fleshly lusts and in the war that it has against each person's soul. So don't think of this as just being, well, the war against the soul is only for Christians. No, it's not. It's for unbelievers also. Okay, they can be brought to ruin just as easily as Christians can. And then he says in verse 12, having your conversation honest among the Gentiles. And conversation here, the Greek word is anastrophe. And ana means back. And strophe comes from strepho. And it means to turn. So it means to turn back or to sojourn. How to conduct one's life. All right, so this is what he's saying. How you conduct your life among the Gentiles. Now, unless you get confused, we see this word conversation here in verse 12. And this Greek word for conversation in verse 12 is different than the Greek word for conversation in Philippians chapter 3 and verse 20. If you'd like, I did on a whole series of messages with the letter of Paul to the Philippians. So if you'd like, you can go and listen to that Philippians chapter 3 verse 20 lesson. The Greek word for conversation in Philippians 3 verse 20 means citizenship. Okay? So, but here it means how to conduct your life. So the King James Version has the same English word, conversation, but they translated it from two different Greek words. So don't be confused and think, well, you have conversation here and you have conversation there. I guess it means the same thing. Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't mean the same thing. So here it means how a person conducts their life. So Peter here is saying, having your conversation or your life before these Gentiles, having it honest among these Gentiles, all right? And the Greek word for honest is kalos. And this Greek word is used 2 times in this same verse. Kalos. It's used twice in this verse. It's used for the word honest, and also it's used for the word good in this verse. All right, and we're going to translate it the same in both places. So it means honorable. It means fair or right, deserving of esteem or honesty. So he says, having your life, the way you live your life, have it be honorable, have it be honest, have it be fair and right and just among the Gentiles. Now, kalos carries with it the idea of that which is intrinsically good. Intrinsically good. All right? Now, kalos is like the Greek word kakos. Now, kakos means evil. And kakos means intrinsic evil. Evil that is from within a person. You have kakos evil, and you also have poneros evil. Kakos evil means intrinsic evil, that the person to the core is evil. It's evil that resides within a person. Poneros evil is evil that is spread out. It's infectious evil. It's when your kakos evil begins to be spread to other people, that's what's called poneros evil. So if you have a Strong's Exhaustive Concordance and you're reading through the Bible and you see the word evil and you say, well, I'd like to see which Greek word we're talking about here, you can open up the word evil in your Strong's and go to that specific verse and find out which Greek word is being used. Is it kakos evil? Is the writer talking about intrinsic evil, that the person is evil within? Or is he talking about poneros evil, which is infectious evil? This is evil that is being spread to other people. Well, kalos, which is honest, is like kakos. It's from the same family of Greek word. Okay, so kalos honesty means that which comes from within a person. So it's honesty that comes within. So the way these Jewish believers were to live their lives among the Gentiles in Asia Minor was to be an honest, fair, honorable life. And it was to come from within them, not just to be an outward show. So many times we meet people and they have a show of honesty. They have a show of fairness. But it's all on the outside, because inside it's not coming from within them. It's just an outward show. It's just a mask. And here Peter's telling these Jewish believers that while you're living there among these Gentiles, live your life with honesty, with fairness, with uprightness, and have it come from within you. Have it come from within who you are. Not just an outward show, but have it be part of who you are. So he says, have your conversation honest among the Gentiles, that whereof they speak against you as evildoers. Now, evildoers, the Greek word here is kakopios. Kakopios. And we just saw kakos, right? Meaning intrinsic evil. Well, kakopios comes from kakon, which is evil, and poieo, which means to do. It means a doer of evil. Okay, someone who does evil. And this is the way of the carnal mind and the carnal and the worldly mind. Okay, in Isaiah chapter 5 and verse 20, I'm sure you've heard this verse a number of times in your life. It says, "Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." You know, this is the result of the unsaved mind. The unsaved mind does not think with God. They do not have God's value system in this world. They don't view things, they don't view life as God views it. And as Christians, we are to view life, we are to live our lives as God sees it, basically going against the grain. We live our lives according to the Word of God, according to the truth that God speaks through His Word. And He reveals truths to us. And this is what happens. You know how you were before you were saved, right? Now that you know the Lord, now that you know the Word of God, didn't you call evil good, right? Didn't you call darkness for light? We had things all mixed up. In our minds, we had things all reversed and all twisted up in our minds. Some things, yes, some things we did have right. Maybe there was an influence from someone in our past, our parents or a relative or a friend or someone who did know the Lord, and we heard the things of the Word of God, and there was some truth. But generally speaking, from the carnal fleshly mind, our minds are twisted, and therefore we get things wrong according to the Word of God. We view life opposite of how God views it. And in 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 9 through 11, Solomon here is praying, and he says, "Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this thy so great a people?" And the speech pleased the Lord, that Solomon had asked this thing. And God said unto him, "Because you have asked this thing, and have not asked for thyself long life, neither have you asked riches for yourself, nor have you asked the life of your enemies, but has asked for thyself understanding to discern judgment. Behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and an understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee." And this is what we need. You know, the carnal mind loses discernment between right and wrong. This is why Christians need to be in the Word of God regularly, praying, being humble before God, so that we don't lose the ability to discern because of having carnality in our heart. And it's the temptation even with strong Christians, people who have known the Lord for many years. There is this temptation to give in to the carnal mind, not knowingly, but they give in, and all of a sudden judgment and discernment begins to go astray, and we stop seeing things as God sees them, as what the Word of God teaches us. We don't view things God's way, and because of that, we begin to call evil good and good evil. And this is why, like Solomon, we need to pray to God. God, if there's one thing we need here in this life while we're living in this world, is we need a discerning heart. Don't give me riches, Don't give me poorness. Don't give me whatever, all kinds of things. What we really need is a discerning heart for our life. That's what that is what really made God happy with Solomon. He said, you didn't ask for riches. You didn't ask for the life of your enemy. You didn't ask for many, many years. You could have asked me for many things. But what you did was you came to me and asked me for a discerning heart to judge between right and wrong, and between your people, and just for your life in general, to know what's right and wrong. And every Christian needs to have that before God, to be to humble themselves, and regardless of what situation you find yourself in, whether you have lots of money, not lots of money, whether you have things or don't have things, regardless of all this outside stuff, pray and seek God to have a discerning heart, to have a heart that's true before Him, and that we can live our lives unto Him. Because of jealousy, anger, hatred, or simply a misunderstanding, the carnal person wants to accuse the Christian of being an evildoer. Christians are to be a testimony of God's kingdom to the world. And we speak of salvation, God's righteousness, and of judgment to come. But the world doesn't want to hear these things. Therefore, we are evildoers. We are causing a stir, right? You're stirring people up. You're stirring up the people around you at work, wherever you go. You're stirring them up because you are a testimony of the righteousness and the holiness of God and the judgment of God to come upon this world. And that people can be saved from that judgment. And some people will hear, some people, they won't hear. They just will never get it. And the thing is they look at you and they say you're an evildoer. Why? Because they call evil good and good evil. And they don't see things as God sees them. And therefore, that's how they view you, as an evildoer. You're stirring up the people. That's what they said about Paul in Acts, right? He's stirring the people up. I think it was at Ephesus. He's got all the people all riled up and worked up. Sometimes that's a good thing. People need to be stirred up. You know, hearts need to be stirred up, and in order to get them to consider the things of God, and may that they need to be saved, right? All right, we'll continue with this verse next lesson. But until then, walk with the Lord. I know He walks with you.